Peter Chen, Dragons, Heroic, both players in top 8 contention here. Rill on top of the standings at 11-1. He's got a Forest, looks like he's got an Elvish Mystic, which has really, honestly, been kind of the card of the tournament.
It's every time we watch these green decks, whether it's Dragons or Devotion, when they start off with a turn one Elvish Mystic, it feels like their deck is operating on an entirely different level.
As far as Bant Heroic decks into day number 2, this is the only one. It's Peter Chen. As we said, not a lot of Heroic out there this particular weekend.
But we're seeing some deep runs by some of our one-ofs here. Peter Chen here with Bant Heroic. Our lone pilot of green splash white Devotion also potentially in top 8 contention as well.
Rill with a Rugged Highland, that's why he's a 21. Also a Rattleclaw Mystic. So Chen started things off with the Laguna Man Trailblazer. We'll see if he can grow the 0-4.
How do you feel about a block here if he sends in the 0-4?
Love it. No, I would not. I would not block. I would not block.
Since, you know, if you say no blocks and he has nothing, you take 0.
Yeah, I would.
So that's a pretty safe no block.
Kind of like blocking then. If he's trying to get me.
You need to establish the parameters of the match very early on.
Yeah. Defiant Strike, of course, going to target the Laguna Man Trailblazer. Means it's attack for 2. Rill down to 19. An Island from Chen and a passing of the turn. Look, don't try to sneak at any points of damage on me, even if it's 0. Okay?
You don't get to sneak through 0 points on me.
A Rabble Master is going to bring a Goblin token along with it. We'll see if Rattleclaw Mystic has some interest in coming into the red zone as well. But this is a pretty good start for Rill. When we watched Rill yesterday, he actually had more of this kind of game than a Dragons type game. He was really giving some beatdowns with Rabble Master on the ground. Here's a Temple.
And this spot is going to be tough for Peter to catch up already. You know, Dromoka's Command, Ordeal of Heliod. Besides that, he's just got to race, and this is a pretty hard board to race, especially with Eric having Stormbreath Dragon in hand to top off his curve.
Chen going to take a decent look at his hand right now. He is certainly underneath some pressure here. And that Laguna Man Trailblazer might actually be hanging out on defense this turn. We'll see. There's a Hero of Heroes, so I'll have to take 1 to cast it. Manic Influence, very powerful in this deck, but can also cause some problems in dealing damage. And Chen doesn't even have another land to play, so all I can do is pass the turn back.
Well, it's a 3-color deck with really sensitive color mana requirements, so playing it's a no-brainer. But it's not free, especially in matchups where your light total is under duress, and this is one of those matchups.
Here's another Rabble Master, which means another Goblin token is going to join the battlefield. And that first Rabble Master will have to attack. It'll be relatively large, of course, but I have a feeling if Chen has the opportunity to trade, he will take it. Yeah, Hero of Heroes looks like it's going to get in front of Goblin Rabble Master. Goblin token will get blocked by Laguna Man Trailblazer, so 2 damage will come across. Does Rill have a follow-up? He's got a Forest and a Morph to play, which is a copy of Den Protector. That's the last card in his hand, so no Dragons, no removal here for Rill this game.
But I don't think he's going to need it. I mean, he's doing very well right now. He can get the Rabble Master back next turn and recast it, and possibly make the Den Protector large enough that Peter can't easily block it.
Yeah, Chen's deck is certainly not cooperating with him right now, that's for sure. That Island is really sticking out like a sore thumb right now. Yeah. And another copy of Manic Influence is certainly no picnic.
It's up because I believe that Peter does have Ordeal of Heliod in hand, but even gaining 10 in this spot, he takes so much damage on the way back that he doesn't have the cushion to even do that.
It's not particularly great, that line of play at this point. There's a Wooded Foothills. Rill sacrificed that. Looks like he's on the hunt for a mountain.
I think we just might be seeing a pretty big alpha strike here.
Unmorphed Den Protector, play Rabble Master, get in with everything.
With everything, yeah.
He's at a high enough life total where there's really no punishment in doing this. There is Rabble Master.
He also just wants to be capitalizing on Peter's stumbles right now.
And make those mana confluences as poor as possible.
Exactly, yep. The more you pressure his life total, the more those mana confluences are going to haunt him.
Everybody's coming in. Rebel Master's going to be real large. This is a pretty healthy attack here from Rill. And this isn't really the way his deck always draws it up. He is a Dragon's deck after all. He's got main deck copies of Ash Cloud Phoenix, 2 of those this weekend. 4 Thunder Break Regents and 4 Stormbreath Dragons, but this is, again, the power of Goblin Rebel Master.
Yep. And Bant Heroic is not very good at removing creatures. It's really just the 4 copies of Draboka's Command. And so Rabble Master gets to run amok in this matchup a good percentage of the time.
A little bit of blocking to be done here by Chen. Looks like Favorite Hoplight's going to get in front of Rabble Master. Laguna Man Trailblazer is going to get in front of Rattleclaw Mystic. Looks like Chen does have a God's Willing to play on Favorite Hoplite. That'll give him protection from red at the cost of a life. It'll also turn it into a 2/3, make it so the damage dealt to it is reduced to 0. So he has found a way to take care of the Rabble Master, but he's still underneath a lot of trouble.
It looks like 8 points of damage is coming across here.
Down to 2 and has 2 copies of Mana Confluence in play. Not good.
Now, Ordeal of Heliod may allow him to play a little bit of catch-up, but again, with the Rabble Master and all that stuff in play, not clear that that Peter has even that kind of cushion.
Well, Basic Plains is certainly a good draw.
Huge draw.
At least gives him a shot to play. There's Ordeal of Heliod. That'll trigger Heroic, of course, and the Laguna Man Trailblazer. Turn it into a 2/6. An attack will turn it into a 3/7, and it will allow Chen to gain some life. So he's up to 12 now. Real unlikely to have any interest in blocking. And even I wouldn't block there,
no.
in case you were wondering.
It's not even a bluff block.
No, it's just my creature.
It's just on board bad.
Yeah. Goblin token, everybody in. Chen got to do a little bit of math.
Has to block the Rabble Master. Doesn't matter if he has no trick. Has to block the Rabble Master.
Favorite Hoplite going to bite the dust. A lot of damage going to be dealt this turn. Rill already drew his card for the turn. Nothing doing, just going to pass the turn back. Chen will concede the game as he can't find any help and his mana is just too painful. Eric Rill going to win game number 1 here over Peter Chen. Green Red Dragons up a game very quickly over Bant Heroic, which means we're going to move on to the sideboard and we will start with the Bant Heroic deck.
An Island, 2 Stubborn Denials, a Treasure Cruise, 2 copies of Ordeal of Heliod, 2 Monastery Mentor, 2 copies of Encased Knights, Ajani's Presence, an Aqueous Form, 3 copies of Disdainful Stroke. Great sideboard for this matchup. I think Peter, what he's in the market for against Red Green is things that make blocking harder for Eric and more life gain. So I think you're going to see the additional copies of Ordeal of Heliod come in. That allows Peter actually to go up to a full 4 copies. Encased Ice is excellent in this matchup. Great tempo play, great way of containing some threats, including Stormbreath Dragon, which can be problematic for Bant Heroic at times. And I think you're going to see the additional copy of Ajani's Presence and Aqueous Form coming in as well.
On the other side of things here for Eric Rill, he's got a Den Protector and Outpost Siege, 2 copies of Arc Lightning, a Twin Bolt, a Wild Slash, a Roast, a Reclamation Sage, 2 Xenagos the Reveler, 2 Nissa World Waker, 1 Chandra Pyromaster, and then 2 Barrage of Boulders if you like to go a little bit bigger. A lot of spot removal here, though.
Now, not all the spot removal is reliable because there's a very short shelf life for a lot of it. But Roast, Wild Slash, Twin Bolt, and Arc Lightning all seem like upgrades here.
I like all those cards.
Yeah.
Seems pretty academic to board those in. I think that's what we will see Rill do here in just a moment. While these players do get ready here for game number 2, in which Chen will be on the play, we talked about the Spring Creature Collection here on Star City Games. We've got sleeves, playmats, and dice bags of some of our game night favorites.
Yeah, you can see the Spring Creature Collection here, the Kitten, the Bee, the Bunny, and Delver's Squeakrits, all available on card sleeves, playmats, and dice bags. You can head over to StarCityGames.com/Creature Collection to order your items today, or just head over to our dealer booth at any of our opens or any Grand Prix that we're vending at.
We do get ready here for game number 2. Of course, Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan here in the booth, Ken Crocker on the sideboard, along with the rest of the SCG Live crew. As we're in round number 13 of 15 here from Indianapolis, this is kicking off season number 3 on the Open Series. So players are certainly in the hunt here Rill is someone who we saw quite a bit in the Open Series last year. Just came up a little bit short of qualifying for the Players' Championship. Haven't seen him as much this year, unfortunately.
Had a really good run through Season 1 and Season 2, though.
It really did.
Kind of petered out, did not attend that many events, and was not as successful in the events that he attended in the back end of 2014. But the first season and the second season, he and Ken kind of really stood out, players who were sort of obscure coming into the season, but who had consistent results and really put themselves on the map.
Two good buddies who did a lot of battling and traveling together. I remember their travels to the Open Series in Milwaukee last year, where Rill won that tournament with a 4-color Delver deck, and Ketter was hoping he would get the job done quick so they could drive back home. Because they had a pretty lengthy drive back.
A common issue with carpooling.
Indeed.
You're rooting for your friends up to a point. Often it's the cash finish, but no top 8. That's what you want.
Well, see, though I did used to sleep on the PTQ rides, when I was there and my friends were making deep runs, I was all the way in with them.
You were on the rail.
I was on the rail. I was helping get ready for matches. I wanted them to win more than anything in the world. So, and then when we were driving back, I would fall asleep immediately.
Yep.
There's a trade-off there.
Being on the rail is good. I was often on the rail, but sometimes I was unable to contain my contempt for my friend's opponent. And so it was sometimes better for me to just back off and not watch the match.
I see. Young Patrick a little angry back in the day.
Old Patrick's pretty angry too.
That's true.
Just in a different way.
That's accurate. Surly, I think, is a better way to describe old Patrick.
Get off my lawn. Yeah. There's a little bit more of that now.
That's fine. Old is gold, man.
Yeah.
And tell these kids to get off their lawn and turn down their terrible techno music. I've fully embraced being old.
And you got a ways to go.
Yeah, even though I'm 29, I feel like I'm 49.
Yeah. No, I'm excited. My whole life's kind of been on some Benjamin Button kind of action, you know what I mean? So I'm really just excited to see how the process unfolds.
Just old from the start.
Yeah.
See if Chen is happy with his opening hand. A really rough draw last game. It was really just all over the place. And one thing about Heroic is it's not a deck that mulligans all that well, especially the Ban Heroic version because the mana is so sensitive.
Though this is the kind of matchup where you can mulligan because the battle isn't really over removal. I know that Eric has some, but it's not like he's really going to attrition Peter out of the game. It's more about a battle of, does Peter have his draw? Can he push a creature to his size where Eric can interact? And then race whatever Eric's doing in the air. So you never want a mulligan, but this is a matchup where Peter goes down to 5 cards but finds a functional hand, he'll be okay.
The Gunman Trailblazer off of a Plains from a Flooded Strand. That's why Chen's at 19. A Temple here from Rill. We'll see where that top card's going to go. Looks like it's going to stay on top. We'll be heading back Chen's way here in just a moment. Chen will take a draw. It's time to build a hero.
And it's always so much fun when you're playing Ban Heroic against the red-green decks because you could just go nuts. You don't have to worry about Hero's downfall. You don't have to worry about any sort of passivism effect. Just go off.
Well, I think that might be what we're going to try to do. There's a Seeker of the Way. So a more honest start at this point.
Well, all hell may break loose next turn.
Yeah, that's what this deck does. Going to search up an island there with that Flooded Strand. Chen down to 18. Rill going to go down to 19, Wooded Foothills. He'll search up either a forest or a mountain here. He'll go with a mountain. Perhaps a little acceleration on the way. Could have a copy of Roast, maybe even a Draconic Roar. Rill did sack pretty quickly. He's going to play, oh yes.
Yeah.
A face-up Den Protector strategy.
These are my favorite moments in Standard.
Yeah?
When someone is so tight on mana or the game is played at such a fast pace that you have to do this.
Well, that's the flexibility of the card. Here come the beatdowns. This is another situation where I would not block the 0-4.
The idea of blocking the 0-4 is just really funny to me.
It's Battle-Wise Hoplite. Pass the turn
Because he
back.
could be bluffing.
Yep.
But if he's bluffing, who cares?
It's more about sending a message.
Right. Do your worst. I I don't believe you for a minute.
Here's a Death Mist Raptor. That's a good one in this matchup.
Yeah. Peter needs to start putting some enchantments on things. At the risk of being reductive. This is not the type of draw his deck's looking to do against red-green. In certain matchups where, you're worried about removal spells, you want to build up your board a little bit, that's different. But this matchup, the coast is clear to go crazy with your enchantments. So it's a bad sign for Peter so far that he hasn't been able to do anything to that end.
I would snap off the 0-4 now.
Now I'm blocking the 0-4.
Yeah. Yes!
Yes!
Teach him a lesson, Eric.
There's a lot of good gamesmanship going on here that I really appreciate.
Eric's just going, what are you doing with this 0-4?
I like Alpha striking with a 0-4. That's really funny to me, too.
Yeah, me too. Here's a Defiant Strike. Battle-wise, Hoplite's going to get a little bit bigger. Of course, you'll get the trigger, the Scry, and also Prowess. And now draw a card from Defiant Strike. So, that's done resolving. Some damage will be dealt here. A little bit of life to be gained on Chen's side, too. See you later, Trailblazer.
Just sent the 0-4 into the abyss.
It was unclear if he was going to block it.
If I was the Laguna Band Trailblazer, I would be really disappointed with that attack. If I suddenly found myself in the graveyard.
Maybe have a conversation with Peter.
Come on, boss, what's going on here?
Yeah.
If you weren't going to save me, why was I in the ring, It's pretty attractive for him to block it because, I have no power. So it's, well, whatever. We'll talk about it after the match.
Here's a Forest from Rill. It's Goblin Rabble Master, so maybe a little offense-defense action here. There's a Goblin and Den Protector going to come into the red zone. Rill with just 1 mana available with the Temple. He'll pass the turn back to Chen. Not a lot of 1-mana things to do here in this deck either. There is 1 copy of Wild Slash that Chen needs to be concerned about.
Forest is potentially a big draw here for Peter because he has Dramoka's Command. Some pretty sweet targets in play.
And he does have it in his hand right now. Here's an island to start. Maybe an Aqueous for him? Yep. That'll target Battle-Wise Hoplite. Gonna want to make sure he gets that counter there. There you go. Gets the Scry, too. Looks like he's keeping that card on top of his deck. Here's the attack. Looks like Chen has passed up on the Scry trigger from Aqua's form because he's already left that card on top of his deck.
Yep.
So he knows what's there. Rill will draw a card.
And now Peter can kind of sit in a pretty passive position here because he knows that Eric's removal is all red-based. So he can't block this thing. And if he goes for a kill with red-based removal, first of all, a lot of it won't work because the creature's a 4-4. And second, with Dramoka's Command, you could probably figure out a way to negate it. Set up lethal for next turn.
Oh, Rill's in some real trouble. He's got a lot of damage he's got to deal, too. 16 of it, to be exact. Rabble Master can catch you up pretty quickly, but we'll see if that's actually going to be the case.
I think Peter is doing a Crater's Claws count right now because remember, if Eric goes into combat and attacks everything, the Rabble Master becomes 4 power. And so Crater's Claws with the ferocious part of it enabled is something Peter has to play around now. With Dramoka's Command, it shouldn't be hard, but Eric could easily generate 16 points of damage this turn.
Well, it's all about using the command correctly. That's the thing that Peter's got to get right here. And it looks like he's going to cast it. So you have to imagine there'll be some fighting and a counterplace on things. And don't forget that Prowess is going to trigger now on the Seeker of the Way as well. So some lifelink action might be at work. Maybe Heroic trigger. That's why this is arguably the best Heroic's Command deck because it really just kind of lights the deck on fire. Goes crazy.
This was a pretty, this play was pretty risky, and now you're seeing the consequences of it. I think that if Peter sits passively with the Dromoka's command in his hand and waits for Eric to move first, it's very hard for Eric to win the game. But by moving first, suddenly you've opened up Wild Slash to be a huge blowout, and here we are.
That's what looks like Wild Slash could appear to be right now. And that was Rill's draw step for the turn. And he's only got one in his sideboard, so not surprising to see it come in from the sideboard, but it looks like it was pretty timely in this situation, though. Chen is sacrificing, and it looks like maybe going to be casting a God's Willing. So not the first time we've seen this before from Heroic, and that's timely, of course.
Yeah, Peter had a spell to follow up with, and this is totally fine.
It's unclear if that's the case.
Well, the God's Willing here protects him from the disaster scenario that we saw. I suppose Eric could have had a second instant speed spell here, but the Dromoka's command is a little bit less risky than it appeared on the surface if Peter had God's Willing to back it up. And now he's without a 4-power creature, so him being able to do anything about the Battle-Wise Hoplite seems impossible. And I think we're about to go to Game 3 momentarily.
Yeah, we've seen these sort of draws by Heroic before. It is a very powerful strategy, especially with this Ban Heroic one. When the lands come together, you're able to operate accordingly and do your thing. That's when life is pretty tough. You see Rill's going to concede this game. He's just way too far behind at this point.
Yeah, this is sort of a weird matchup because a lot of the matches we see in Standard, the battle for Ban Heroic is, can I set up my creature and protect it? You're playing against a lot of removal spells, you're playing against sweepers, and can you figure out a way to make a creature large enough to apply sufficient pressure while protecting it from various banishing effects? Red-Green Dragons, it's a different matchup. The battle is not over can you protect a creature, because that's pretty trivial to do. It's can you erase what they're doing fast enough? And so a lot of the standard jockeying for position that you see Ban Heroic do doesn't really function against Green-Red Dragons because the battle is about different stuff. It's about your life total. It's about being able to race against their kill. It's about keeping yourself out of Crater's Claw's range. It's just a different fight than the one that Ban Heroic typically has to battle against most standard decks.
Well, these players are going to shuffle up here for game number 3. We'll quickly talk about the Open Series trials that are taking place this summer. Summer's only kicking off right now, but there's a lot of stuff to be earned on the IQ circuit and with Open trials, including the awesome playmat and the Open Series buys, actually.
Yeah, if you're planning on attending an Open Series event, this is a great way to, first of all, play in some organized play and get some practice, and second, receive some great prizes like the playmat that you see, and Open Series entry voucher, SCG premium vouchers, and perhaps most attractive of all, a buy for an Open Series event of your choice.
Of course, you can use buys in the main events of the Open Series. Can't use mid-invitationals anymore. Those are buy-free events, but if you want to be like some of the players on the top of our leaderboard, and they have demonstrated just how powerful buys can be, this is where you go about getting them. So SCGames.com/open trial for more information about all of that. Eric Rill is someone who used to have buys in the Open Series circuit. No longer, unfortunately, for him, but he's looking to work his way back up the standings, back up the leaderboard, and maybe towards a 5th Open Series title.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, just the majority of his points have fallen off because he did so much of his work in Season 1 and Season 2 of last year, and we're in Season 3 now, so all that's gone.
He's got a tough climb, but he's off to a great start. He's first place right now in this tournament at 11-1 with Green-Red Dragons, which is a very popular deck this weekend, as are most Dragon decks. Again, Mardu Dragons, 14 copies. Esper Dragons, 13 copies. You've got Green-Red Dragons at 4. You've got Kent Keter and Green-Black Dragons with 3 copies. Naya Dragons, you've even got one of those. So people really like Dragon Lord Tarka and the other Dragon Lords of the set. They are very, very, very powerful cards for what it's worth.
And now with Mardu Dragons, really all the Dragon Lords are showing up in standard decks.
Yeah, Dragon Lord Kolagon was kind of hated on a little bit, but it's in a deck. It's found a home.
It's a lot of numbers.
I'm actually glad that they're all seeing play and that they're all good.
Yeah, congratulations to R&D. You know, there's a lot of pressure on to make those cards good, but not frustrating. They sort of compete with one another for slots in decks and so forth, and they got them all right.
And I also like that there's basically a dragon, to kind of bridge the gap in Thunderbreak Regent for almost all of the decks. Some of the regions are good, some of them are just okay. A card like Icefall Regent, I think people are still trying to figure out how good that card is.
I think it's very powerful in the right metagames. We've had matches in mid-range creature matchups with just creatures and removal. Icefall Region's very, very powerful.
Yeah, I hope that one sees some more play because I think it's a pretty sweet card. We're underway here in game number 3. A Temple of Abandon is where Rill does start. Going Chen's way. It's like Lunaman Trailblazer again to play this game again. My favorite one. A Rugged Highlands here for Rill.
I think Eric has kept a pretty slow hand here. Looks like a lot of Thunderbreak regions and Crater's Claws and so forth.
Looks like no acceleration too. Windswept Teeth is going to search it before us. That means Shamoka's command is online. Remember, this deck put on the map by Tom Ross at the Open Series in Syracuse that Chris Van Meter won during season number 2. We've seen it have quite a bit of success. Ross Merriam, of course, winning the Open Series in Cleveland with Ban Heroic, as now here's an Ordeal of Heliod. Trailblazer going to get another counter, so it's on attack for 2.
This is a great opening for Peter. Helps him in the damage race. The Trailblazer is now 6 toughness, so Roast can't even touch this.
Which was the draw for the turn, of course.
Max Payne.
Yep. Because that's how these things work. Den Protector's face down. I think Eric actually kept his hand because he had Roasts, plural, now. And Chen has pushed himself out of roast range. Den Protector is the morph.
And now with Flooded Strand, the draw, that gets an island, and Peter's whole hand is unlocked.
Yep.
We'll get to see the extent of the damage this turn, I'm sure, but this is the type of start that Peter really wants.
Oh boy. There's Ordeal of Thassa. Here we go. Both ordeals are going to break. All of a sudden, there's a 5/9 on the battlefield, and that's really, really hard for Rill's deck to beat. Especially with a single white mana up. I think we've seen this song and dance before.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of needs to get to a defensive Stormbreath Dragon, which can work sometimes, but going to be tough. Especially with Peter probably having a full playset of Aqueous formed in his deck post board.
To Rill we go. Picked up a copy of Temple of Abandon. You see a lot of red cards over there in his hand, which is not good when you're facing a 5/9 creature. There's Temple.
And Eric's hand was not very good to begin with. Felt like kind of on the bottom end of keepable hands, and Peter's draw this game, not messing around.
And it's kind of interesting because I believe he kept his hand based off of Roast. And I think I would keep a hand based off of Roast in most instances in this matchup against, Favorite Hoplite, Battle-Wise Hoplite, Seeker of the Way, what have you, being able to kill the first threat. But the first threat was a Trailblazer, and then it became a 6 toughness creature right away.
Well, there's only one Roast in his hand, and he picked it up on the draw step after the Trailblazer got to 6 toughness.
Sure.
So I think he kept it on the... There's some Crater's Claws, there's some Thunderbreak Regions. Not a great hand, but Peter's draw here, not messing around either.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, Eric's draw's gotten blown up by Peter's start. It feels like a very one-sided game at this point. You can even take a look at the light totals, 26-14. Chen going to figure out what he wants to do here on his 4th turn. He's so far ahead at this point. Just want to make sure you don't make a mistake. Here's the Temple of Enlightenment. Take a look at that top card. That card going to go to the bottom. Follow-up is a Seeker of the Way, and the shields are sort of down right now. Maybe if Double Roast works its way into the equation. Deathmiss Raptor the draw, that's not bad.
Yeah, Deathmiss Raptor is it's not likely to be good enough, but it's Eric's best shot.
There are worse draws. There is the Raptor. Especially when you have a Den Protector face down, too, the ability to return the Raptor. Maybe you can work your way through the one God's Willing that you hope your opponent has. I mean, at this point, if you're Eric, you're just hoping that Aqueous Form never gets into this game because you really can't beat it. There's a Favorite Hoplite. And Chen just looking to continue to push his advantage. He'll just pass the turn back, so not a lot doing.
Good sign for Eric.
Yeah, indeed. I'm out in the draw here for Rill. And Rill does have 2 copies of Thunderbreak Regent. He can start to try to go to the skies. He's got a lot of life to work through, though. 26 life on Chen's side.
Eric's got to play defense for a while here.
It's not a comfortable spot to be in. Doesn't really have much of a choice, though.
There's so many draws. Aqueous Form, Dromoka's Command, that if Peter finds, I don't think Eric can hang on to the game.
We try not to talk about Dromoka's Command.
Every time it's a creature matchup and the board looks like this, it's a choose your own adventure, and all the options are good.
Yeah. Single blue? I'd be scared if I was Eric. A blue and another mana, I would be feeling okay. Because that probably means something like Ordeal of Thassa. There is Ordeal of Thassa on favorite Hoplite. You get a heroic trigger, which means +1/+1. And of course, the damage dealt to that creature is reduced to 0. So a safe attacker. Can't forget that Prowess was triggered as well. And now Chen's going to get a little bit more aggressive. Favorite Hoplite will work its way to a 3/4. Seeker of the Ways, a 3/3 lifelinker. And Laguna Band Trailblazer is a 5/9 attacker.
This is a tough set of blocks here because you almost have to, you're almost operating under the assumption of, well, I can't beat anything at all. So I have to block like what's going on the board is the only bad thing that can happen. And I think this is the block.
I think the hand is forced with this block.
You're not beating God's willing, so you just have to kind of play like this.
Yep. It's fingers crossed and hope, which is the worst feeling, but it's also just the truth. There's a Defiant Strike. There's a trigger. So it looks like trying to force through some damage here. You also get another Prowess trigger with the Seeker. It looks like some real work may have gotten done here.
Yeah, this is not bad. And if Peter doesn't have a follow-up here,
It's gonna be
or
really,
a way to protect his creature,
this could be bad news.
Rose is back online.
Yeah?
And if Rose gets online, we know that Eric's face-down card is Den Protector. That gets back a Death Mist Raptor. That gets back a Roast. And it's a very different game.
It's gonna leave a single mana up. And if you're Eric, I mean, I don't think you have a choice. I think you just have to roast the creature.
Yeah.
Creator's Clause for 5 is all of your turn, which you might be okay with.
I think from an efficiency standpoint, he's better served getting back the Death Mist Raptor. Yeah, I think that Peter's hand's just creatures.
Yeah, I think so too. And with the way that Peter tapped that mana so fast, I mean, maybe he thought he had a God Willing or a Defiant Strike in his hand, but that's clearly not the case. Because his creature now, his entire board is gone. I mean, he is at 30, so he's got a lot of life to work with. Make it 28, but now here's a Thunderbreak Regent, and Eric can start to turn up the heat here a little bit.
Yeah, the thing is that Peter wasn't really obligated last turn to offer up that Alpha Strike. He could have just done some things with the favorite Hoplite, which is totally safe to attack with, assuming you've done any sort of heroic shenanigans, whittle down Eric's board, and then when you draw Aqueous Form or what have you, suddenly you're fine. With that Alpha Strike, he allowed Eric to make some trades here, and now the game looks very, very different.
There's a basic planes there for Chen. He's down at 27. And you can see Rill's body language has changed a little bit here. I think he probably thought he was dead to rights, but things worked out pretty well for him. Well, there's a bunch of creatures. You said his hand was all creatures. You weren't wrong. Seeker of the Way, Hero of Iroas, and the Laguna Band Trailblazer. Now you can see Chen's body language has changed as well. He realizes what happened last turn. I mean, he lost everything.
Yeah, you have to be, anytime you are trading with someone's Death Mist Raptor, you got to be sure you're making some appreciable inroads into that board. Because that's how these decks wear you down.
Rose is going to be returned. Death Mist Raptor will jump back due to the Unmegamorph on Den Protector. And Eric's turn is actually pretty interesting. He gets to go Roast here. He can go Crater's Claws, both of your guys, because he has Ferocious on the creatures, and now he gets to attack. And now Eric is really turning this game around.
Yeah, and I love not messing around here.
Me too.
Because any creature is a target for an enchantment like Aqueous Form, so you just got to do this.
Favorite Hoplite off the top there from Chen's on the battlefield. There's a Temple. Take a look at the top card. It quickly goes to the bottom. If you're Eric, you're trying to shorten this game.
He's
gonna
still
attack
at
for
risk.
10.
I mean, if Peter has a creature going into his turn, Eric can still lose after all of this.
Yeah, but what can you do? You attack for 10, you play him more. If you pass the turn, you cross your fingers. I think that's really all you can do at this point. Chen will draw a card. And now it's got to be a big draw. Didn't get a great look at it, but he's reaching for mana already. 4 mana. Couple of ordeals. Couple of triggers. 10 life is going to be gained.
So God's Willing is no good here.
No good, because it's a face-down colorless creature. Chen back up to 20. Picks up 2 cards. There's your block. It was a Rattleclaw Mystic, I believe. Now Favorite Hoplite's looking to provide lethal damage. We go back Rill's way. Some really good draws available here to Eric.
That's a sign of someone who didn't draw one. If he's holding back one creature.
This is how the damage lines up. It's 10 and 10. And he's got 10 on the board, so he'd be able to make it a 2-turn game. There's a Dromoka's command.
Now remember, the part of the heroic trigger that you get from Favorite Hoplite is prevent all damage.
Yep.
So you can use Favorite Hoplite and Dromoka's command to fight a Death Touch creature without the usual negative consequences.
And this is actually kind of the interaction that we saw that put this deck on the map in Syracuse. And Peter Chen is able to get this one back here over Eric Rill. He wins the match 2-1. Bant Heroic takes down Green-Red Dragons in a pretty interesting back-and-forth affair.
Yeah, you know, Eric got an opening there when Peter made that Alpha Strike for, you know, very little effect. Unfortunately for Eric, Peter had gained such a cushion of life from the ordeal of Heliod's that he had several turns to draw out of it. And with Eric on the ropes, it didn't take a lot of draws for Peter to be able to finish off that game.
Yeah, we said, you know, Ordeal is this kind of card in this matchup that can really play the role of Time Walk and sometimes Time Stretch, because 10 life is so much. And I think that's what happened that game. If the